Ain't this what they've been waiting for? You ready?
Welcome back to this week's episode of Calls and Strikes. We had a really interesting story, and it also, we have a big listening segment in Minneapolis. A lot of viewers. We got a hockey guy in-house too, and so people were like writing and like, hey, why don't you guys ever talk about hockey? You talk about all the big four except for we got a great hockey story, so we're gonna hit that first. We're just gonna go over some just 101 financial advice,
financial
basics.
literacy,
and I think this story is gonna uncover some of those basics. But so Robin Lehner. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. It doesn't really matter. He's made some pretty good money in his time in the league. So he's a goalie for the Las Vegas Kings, currently recouping from hip surgery.
Yeah, he's out this year. He's sitting right now. He's mending the hip.
Vegas probably isn't the best location for him right now. But so he made news, this week because he owes $50-ish million. He filed bankruptcy. So him and his wife filed bankruptcy. And the underlying reason is fairly sexy, and we'll jump into that a little bit. So, and it's not the sole cause, but we did a little bit of research, and you told me so he was buying some exotic snakes. We make jokes about the Persian rug budget and all that stuff, and he's made like $25 million. I don't know what he's kept of that $25 million. And
I don't know. So it's they came out and they said that his assets are anywhere between $1 and $10 million. Right, and his liabilities are $10 to $50 million on what he owes, these creditors. Right, he's in debt to these people. So now it kind of the question comes up, what's he gonna do, man? Right. He's got 2 years and I think $10 million left on his contract. Right, so that's not going to even out. If you're owing more than $10 million to $50 million to these creditors.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, that's a pretty big margin. So he bought a depreciating asset. This is the funny part about it.
Yeah, he bought, I guess it was a couple $1 million worth of, like exotic snakes.
From the exotic snake guy, though. So like the guy that knows how to breed cool-looking like anacondas and stuff.
Yeah, ball pythons.
He dropped 1.2 milli on some like hybrid python anaconda things, and then after the first payment, the snake breeder, his wife popped him, or maybe popped him, maybe her new boyfriend popped him, but there was like a big murder mystery, and so this is
around snakes and athletes.
Yeah,
man.
so they initially, the guy was in business with his brother. The snake breeder was in business with. They thought it was the brother trying to get the snake breeder guy out of the way. No, it was the wife was making bad business decisions herself. Hired one of the boyfriends she had to murder the husband, or they murdered together. Yeah, not super funny, but what is interesting is that he bought the snakes, and this is was an investment. We'll talk about whether or not exotic snakes are
an alternate investment.
Yeah,
worth putting into your portfolio.
It's definitely an alternative investment. The weighting was probably inappropriate. Spending that much scratch on a snake. But sometimes when it's not snakes and you make an investment in a franchise, or sometimes it doesn't go according to plan. And the interesting thing was that after the snake breeder was killed off, the brother that took over the business just kind of like started breeding willy-nilly and diminished the value of he bought these snakes because they were exotic, and then all of a sudden
rare breed, right? And now they're
less rare. Yeah, they're less rare, and he can't get his investment back. So even though it's a weird story with exotic snakes, and we can do that analysis, we're CFPs here, we can decide how much you should spend on exotic snakes. Like it could be anything really. Sometimes you invest in something, it seems smart, and it's unfortunately family was involved too. It looks like his dad's name was on some of the filings and stuff. But
you'd hope you'd have a good surrounding, right? We talked about your board of directors, right? We talked about having a good financial team in place, a good agency in place. Not throwing shade at anybody. I don't know his situation. We don't know the details of the situation further from,
And frankly, like for those of you that watch, and we have a couple of athletes that tune in, like the agent probably is, you're going to get an agent if you're a professional athlete. He's probably going to remove himself from these kind of conversations. Some will venture into the finances, but they're there to negotiate deals and to put your image and, your brand out there. They're not really there to comb through and decide whether investments are good investments. There's a natural detachment that a lot of agents might, they might actually
for
seek.
sure.
They don't want to have these. Yeah, it's a difficult conversation to say, hey, I know I just got you a $25 million contract, but that Anaconda purchase.
Yeah, this is how you should invest it or should invest it. Like it's they try to stay away from the headaches, right? So the conversations that we have, with the agents, it's like they're not doing everything in house, right? They're not handling the investments. Basically, you don't shit where you eat. That's a terrible place. That's a terrible way to put it. But what happens if you break off that relationship with your agent?
Because they get paid. Agents.
Yeah, absolutely. They got to take a cut,
good,
dude.
That's a good couple percent on the low end, and it could be
2 to 4%, depending.
And so, do you want to jeopardize that pretty good income stream? When all you're really expected is to find some deals and negotiate contracts. Do you want to jeopardize that by having difficult conversations about, hey, your father, you're not a bank.
Yeah.
I know your father raised you and gave you life and all that stuff, but you shouldn't let him. You don't want to have that conversation if you don't have to,
that's
right?
That's a tough conversation to have, man. It's, having those people in place that can kind of, treat you like a business, right? Treat your brand like a company from top to bottom, man. Just having that adequate board of directors, right? Depending on
the CFO is
exactly right. Your family can be involved in it, right? But you want to make sure that they're qualified to be able to, if they're going to give you investment advice on these snakes, dude, like, man, maybe if there was somebody else running the finances, or maybe if there was a different CFO of his, affairs, maybe we wouldn't be having this discussion. But obviously when you swan dive, head first into a business opportunity, you want to have, either an exit plan or a succession plan, or like you want to have a fallback plan just in case stuff doesn't go according to plan. And it kind of, would touch a little bit on, what I had written down here. I kind of wanted to get your take, a CFP's take, right? On how do you go about unscrewing yourself from the situation? Like what would Robin's first steps be, like, to get out of this situation, right? So he is recovering from an injury, right? So
that's guaranteed money, and so that's like part of the eyebrow raise of reading the article is, the guy's 3 years into a $25 million guaranteed contract, and generally when you're getting paid $5 million a year, you don't get to keep it all, obviously, but like you're usually not filing for bankruptcy, and this is after he's already earned 20 to 25 million too. Like he's been around for a while, so there's something under. I don't want to speak like specifically because, as a CFP, you want to make sure you have a comprehensive understanding of what's going on. And so the number, we're focusing on the snakes, and that's the exciting part of the story. I see you smirking, but but there's probably a little bit more. There's probably other business ventures. I saw some of those like athlete loan. One of the companies that sued him was like a
Shore Sports lending agency.
Yeah, so like the payday loans for large earners. Hey, we'll get you to your next contract. And this, you mentioned it on previous podcasts, but you don't really receive a paycheck year round. Like sometimes there's a 6-month window, and that's the time to ball. So if you don't have enough money to adequately ball, like you go elsewhere. And I'm not saying it's predatory, but it's something you need to account for. And so how do you dig yourself out? I digress, but it depends. That $10 to $50 million window, if it's more towards 10, he has the earnings power to probably put in force a plan.
Are you doing like 50%? Would you say like a certain percent of the paychecks would be allocated towards paying back?
When it gets to bankruptcy, the court's going to kind of dictate a lot of that. Yeah. So it's, you're kind of beyond the CFP level at that point. Like if you declared bankruptcy, that's the last resort. So the courts are going to settle you out with your debtors.
So you're declaring bankruptcy when there is no other way out?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, it probably would have made sense to come back a year earlier and really, hey, I think I might be underwater here on the snake venture.
Be proactive, get in front of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So now, again, there's the $50 million is almost insurmountable unless he really goes out there and plays his ass off for the next 2 years.
50 mil's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, so if it's more towards the 10, and we know there's, it's not like there's 100 businesses he owes money to. It's it's a handful of businesses. So, I mean, it's doable.
Yeah. So just not to like cut you off right there. Trying to tie this into Mark's book, right? The Money Playbook.
Yeah, Money Playbook.
Talking about money and investing, right? Chapter 7 would be the actual chapter, but saying, being an athlete, even a very smart or wealthy athlete, does not make you a financial, business, or investment expert, right? So if you're a football player and you are a wide receiver, right, and you want to work on your route running, right, you want to perfect your routes, you're probably not going to go to your linebackers coach and ask, how the heck do I run a slant, right? What's the proper footwork to run a slant, right? So the idea behind having an adequate board of directors in your corner is that you have these professionals, right, with industry experience, the highest credentials, to move you towards where you need to go, right? To ask and answer any questions, right? Having that board of directors can probably make or break you, especially after the short
don't have
career.
that time too to stay afloat in a professional sports league. I mean, like that should be all of your time, so you can unwind a little bit, but it's a 24/7 job.
Yes,
and
the
it's
grueling
all year round,
day to day, like you
don't have time to run a franchise. You don't have time to vet who you're borrowing from. You don't have time to. I mean, you can follow the market, but really, you want a team that's plugged in all the time.
Yes, absolutely, man. It'd be tough to, not speaking for anybody, but it would be tough, at least in my mind, to run an adequate exotic snake farm and play a pretty grueling season, especially as a top tier.
Don't give up on your dream, though. If anyone can run that and you've said it, I want an exotic snake farm.
Yeah.
So
Joe Exotic.
Yeah,
I like that, man. I like that a lot, dude. So.
We talked about Correa in the past. He can't find a deal. He can't find anyone to put trust into his ankle injury.
Got a bad leg.
I got a different reason why they're all backing out of the deal. They need to save money for Shohei Ohtani. He's going to command $500 million.
Have a bill?
Yeah, I think so.
Dude, that would be
if this dude is a premier pitcher and a premier hitter, and he's, pretty five-tool all over the place,
and with a spotless reputation, right?
Yeah.
He's just a marketing.
Yeah, I mean, so the spotless reputation. He brings the Japan element, so it's like the Angels reap financial benefit. They have tons of
more eyes,
Japanese sponsors.
Different market.
They have 4 like Japanese television cameras in stadium. It's like he's a unique. In addition to being just a once in a century player. I mean, just
reaping benefits left and right, man. If you can have. Your team or your brand tied to this guy.
So it's got to be a big metropolitan area. Who backed out? San Francisco and New York. The Mets. The Mets have
big
carte blanche. So in the Dodgers, I would guess are another player. He stays local but switches to the bigger team. So that's my conspiracy theory. Is it's because of Shohei?
Yeah,
like Correa doesn't look as attractive with that bum ankle, and maybe you just save for next year because he's all by himself too. This is a pretty hot free agency year.
Yes,
not so much.
That would make sense, man. These teams are, they call it rebuilding years, right? So maybe if a team was saying like, hey, this is Shohei's last year before he is going to command probably $500 million for a long-term deal, maybe a team like, a bigger market team, maybe say, the Cubs or something, right? If they're planning for a down year, they might be able to hoard their stack of chips a little bit in hopes of maybe landing a big fish like
stack.
Shohei.
A big stack.
Yeah, Shohei fish, man. That would be solid.
So that's my conspiracy.
I like that.
What else you got cooking? Got anything else? We got some shorts coming out. So we're going to do some shorts, I think more frequently. Hopefully the thousands upon thousands of you have been reaching out. So
that's right.
Hit the subscribe button too down there if you're watching on YouTube. Yeah, and I guess we'll join you for next week, and maybe we'll see you a couple of times in between now and then.
Yeah.
So
thanks for tuning in.
Take care, y'all.